Yeah. So, hi all. Today we'll be discussing about Postman and its features and the automation scripts that Postman provides us. Okay. So let's begin. These are the contents we'll be covering today. So about Postman, the advantages, automated testing, designing and mocking APIs, monitoring, API documentation, and automation using Newman. Okay. So, what is Postman? So, Postman, most of us must have already used as a medium for uh, like calling RESTful APIs, and it provides a sleek interface for the user to check the RESTful APIs, the request and response, and everything around it, right? But Postman offers features which are much more than uh, testing RESTful APIs. So we'll be discussing all of those features that Postman offers, other than the basic request and response of calling RESTful SOAP and GraphQL APIs. Okay, so let's come to the advantages. So yes, as I talked earlier about calling REST SOAP and GraphQL request directly. Postman is used as an API client for that. Other than that, what we can do is that we can automate the test cases, the manual test cases that we perform. We can automate them, and we can integrate them into our CI/CD pipeline, so that we can ensure that no code change would break the APIs in production or higher environments. All right. We can also mock the APIs by simulating endpoints and the responses as per our requirement, uh, uh, till the time we have not actually created the APIs. So we can actually sandbox APIs using Postman also, in case we are all still in development of those APIs, so that the UI can integrate with them, the sandboxes. All right. Another thing is that we can also produce documentation directly through Postman. So the thing is that we can have a collection of APIs, and Postman allows it us a feature to create documentation for them directly, so that we can provide it to the client or any other person who may be requiring it, right? And what we can do is we can also have a health check enabled in Postman itself, and use it to check the performance and is our API working or not, by using that health check and monitoring system. So we'll be discussing a bit detail about all of these features going ahead. All right. So coming to automated testing, uh, the Postman, it helps us in automated testing by providing the feature to implement test cases for any API, and the language it uses is JavaScript. Okay, so using JavaScript, we can write test cases for any API in Postman. Okay, so the features uh, which it provides us are like pre-request scripts. Okay, so what pre-request script is that before we hit an API, we can define some. If we want to define something before even hitting the API, that particular thing we can define in the pre-request scripts in Postman. So using that, we can for example, we can create an object in the pre-request script that we want to pass in the test case. Okay. Other than that, it provides us feature of environmental, global, and collection specific variables. Okay, so what these are, that Postman has multiple, like we can select the environments in Postman. Okay, we can create our different environments, and according to that we can set the variables in that environment. And we can also have a global variable in Postman, which can be used all across multiple environments. All right. And what Postman offers is that it supports chai assertion libraries. So what chai assertion library is that it's a basic JavaScript based library which Postman supports, and it has some assertion methods in it which are already implemented, and they can be directly used in Postman. Okay, so we can use that to compare the output of a certain test. All right. Also, Postman has the support for schema validation, and it uses tiny validator for that. So in case we want to validate the schema of any particular request, we can use tiny validator as well. Also, we have collections in Postman. So Postman provides a collection runner, so we can arrange the APIs in a order in which we want to test them, and then we can use the Postman collection runner to run all of those APIs at once, to check a test case which we have. All right. Then we have designing and mocking APIs. So, as I told earlier, we can create sandbox API using Postman, and in case while we are still in the development, using the contract of our API, we can directly create a sandbox API and mock it and provide that to the UI developer or anyone else who wants to consume that API for the time being. All right, so it provides mocking of APIs. Next, it also has the feature of monitoring. So we can monitor the APIs like for uptime, responsiveness, and correctness, right? Uh, the multiple things it provides in monitoring is that we can define a monitor for an API collection as along with the monitor run frequency, right? So we can define like at what intervals we want it to run, at what time we want it to run every day. We can also send mail notifications for that monitor in case it fails or any kind of error occurs. And we can, as well as we can add delays and request timeouts and retry mechanisms for the monitor. So all of these features are there provided in the Postman UI to monitor the health of our APIs. All right, coming to API documentation. So this is how the API documentation would look like. It's a feature provided in Postman, and it provides us a public URL for accessing this collection so that we can provide it to client or anyone else. Okay, now one more thing that Postman provides us, which can be part of our CI/CD as well, is automation using Newman. So, what is Newman? Newman is just a collection runner for Postman, and it's a command line collection runner. Okay, so what we have to do is we just have to install Newman using Node.js command, and once we have installed it on our machine, then we can run the Postman collection JSON using Newman, and it looks something like this. Like all the APIs which are there in the collection, they would run when we run that collection and show us the response if it's correct or if some error has occurred in the execution. So Newman is a command line runner for that. So the- what we can do with Newman is that during our deployment, we can create a Jenkins job. All right, we can have I have a service, okay, and I want to test all the I have written some test cases for that, and I place them in a Postman collection. Okay, so what I can do is I can have a Git repository where I can check in that collection which has all the test cases in it, and then using Jenkins I can create a Jenkins job, and in the Jenkins job I can define that Newman command to run that particular connection, uh, and get fetching that repo from Git, and then run that particular collection in that Jenkins job. Uh, After that, in our continuous deployment process, what we can do is like if we have a tool like Spinnaker for continuous deployment, what we can do is we can integrate that Jenkins job in our continuous deployment in such a way that once the deployment of service takes place, that Jenkins job would get executed and run that set of Postman collection test cases that we have provided. In case any of the test case fails after the deployment, uh, we can we can update we can have a pipeline in such a way that we can roll back the service version back to what it was before the deployment, so that there won't be any discrepancies with the new build uh, put into any dev or production environment. So that way we can use the Newman command line collection runner in our CI/CD process as well. So I have provided a link as well. Using this, we can check the detailed process for Jenkins and CI/CD integration. Okay. So yeah, this was it about all the features. So now let's try out some of the things that Postman provides. Okay. Um, yeah. So firstly, like we can what we can do is firstly we can check how we can design and mock the APIs in Postman. All right. So what we have to do is first we have to create an example. Okay. So I can select an API like this is some API that I have. I can create an example here. All right. So what I can do is I want this URL/get, and here I can define any mock body that I want. Okay. So this way I can create a sandbox. All right. And I can save this example. Now all I have to do is I have to select this collection and mock this collection. Okay. I can name it mock server one. Okay. And now I create a mock server. Now Postman has provided me this mock URL, and I'll copy it and just paste that URL instead of this in my API. Okay. So we can see that we have mocked this particular API using an example, and this is the response that we generated, that we had added there. So in this way, we can mock any API. All right. So this is the way for mocking. Then coming to monitoring. So let's take this collection only, and for example, this collection has some test cases which I want to monitor on day-to-day basis. Okay, so what I have to do is I need to select this collection and define the monitoring. All right. So this is the monitor name which I have given, and using this additional preferences, we can also add the email notification retry and everything else. Okay. So right now I'm just creating this monitor for this, and okay. So this is the monitor that we have. Okay. um I'll open this particular monitor. All right. So here we can see our monitor has been created. All right. For that particular collection, I can run this monitor and check if my APIs are successful or not. Also, during the creation of monitor, we had defined a time frame, and at that time, uh, every day this monitor would run and update me that it has run successfully or not. All right. So this way we can create a monitor as well for any collection. Other than that, for API documentation also, like for this particular collection, if I want to create an API documentation, I can select the publish docs. All right. So, so this collection is already published. Okay. So this is the document, the URL which Postman provides me, which is publicly accessible to view the documentation of any collection. All right. So now it like we can share this with any client or anyone else, and they can check the documentation for the APIs which we'll be working on. All right. uh, yeah, so these were the things related to the features. And other than that, I do have a sample script which I can show. It has been implemented using JavaScript for automation purposes. All right. So I just can't run it right now, but for example, I can explain it what it is actually. So this is the pre-request script which I was talking about earlier. What we have done is that we have created this object and provided some values in it. Similarly, we have done for multiple objects, and once we have created that object fully, then we can set that object in the environment variable. So this is the method that Postman provides us to set an environment variable. What it will do is that this whole object that we created, it will save it here. Like right now, I don't have an environment. uh, in case I run this API, it would save a variable here with the value that I'm adding here using json.stringify. All right. Now what I'm doing is that once I have added this create user, I am passing it in the body of my API. So this is the way that we can pass the request body in Postman, which is dynamic. Okay, using these two curly braces, we can pass a dynamic body in Postman, which I had created just now in the pre-request script. Okay, we are passing it here, and what would happen is that if we have a particular API here, it would get hit with this particular body, and once we receive the response, we can write the test cases around it in this particular tab. The things that we want to test in that API, we can mention them here. So like for example, we have these things already present here. Some of the things I can explain, like this is a function to test if response is bad or not. All right. Then these are this is the expected response if we get it, and ignored fields, as well as the response. All right. So what we have done is that the response body which we get here, we are using json.parse to fetch it in a variable. And then we are passing that in the validation method that we have written here in JavaScript. So we have defined a method here, and use in this method, it's pure JavaScript, and using it, we are doing some kind of validation for the response that we receive. All right. And return the response, and on the basis of that, we show that if the test is all right or it is not. Okay. So also there are multiple snippets that Postman provides us. Like if you want to get something from an environment variable, you can do that here, pm.environment.get. Then also if you want to use tiny validator for JSON data, you can just click here and it provides you a whole method for that, for tiny validator. Now all you have to do is mention your data that needs to be validated. So these were the features around Postman. All right, that I wanted to discuss. Yeah. So this is it. Thank you. So do we have any questions around it? Mm, okay.
I had one question about like because these APIs can because the APIs that we actually publish mostly are used by our own environments, right?
Yeah.
So there are not many projects in which we have APIs that are external. So for the case of authentication, how can we manage authentication in that?
Managing the authentication as well. Okay. So
Yeah.
what we have here is that we also have
No,
this authorization.
mean for the mocking part.
Okay, for mocking the authorization, right?
Yeah.
So what we can do is that we can have a collection here, and in that, in the initial call, what we can do is we can give the authentication API hit before any of our API call. All right. So for example, we'll have a call here, okay, and it would be the authentication call for our product, all right, and we'll be getting in the response the token. uh, am I right about it? Like this is what you were
No, no,
asking, right?
no, no. Actually, is it possible that look the because the UI designer has to implement the token part, right? So the authentication is like mocked, connected with our SSOs or our like Keycloak. We have it is we can connect it to directly to Keycloak like we do it in Swagger,
Right.
right? In connect Swagger our authentication to Keycloak in Swagger, so that on directly onto that page we can simply click and get the token.
Yeah. So definitely there must also be an API to get that token, right? If we want to fetch a token,
Yeah,
there
there's an
should be an
API
API for that, right?
there's a whole OAuth mechanism for the for getting the token. There's no single API, right? So
Okay.
there's a OAuth mechanism, and we go to one page, we log in there, and then the token is sent back.
Okay. um for that, like mostly on the systems that I'm aware of, we do have some like Spring OAuth, or using Spring OAuth we can create a bearer token using an API, right? Like for that particular case, I think that could be a drawback here, because we just can't open a UI from here, right? But in case we have a REST API,
Like the UI that you open, the UI that you provide, the link that Postman provides, there's a UI, right? All
yeah,
the document in the
yeah,
documentation we
for the
can try the APIs,
documentation.
right? We can try the APIs in this, right?
Yeah, from here, yes, definitely. It does provide us all the
This is what I'm
documentation
asking.
here.
Can we connect like automatically the configuration is there, and we can configuration for our token is also there. So we just need to click and log in, and then token is given to us here.
Okay, like I can check that and get back
Let's
to you
discuss
on.
that offline, maybe.
Definitely, we can discuss that.
Yeah,
But in case if there is, for example, if there is some authentication API that we have in place and we have a basic token for that, which I think we can have a basic token for that, which would be used to create a bearer token. In case we have such API, then in the test, we can define a variable using set a global variable, and whatever key I am getting in the response, I can set it in the global variable here. So that, for example, whenever the next API would be hit, in the headers, I can define in authorization. Okay, so in authorization, I can define here a variable which can be called user token, for example. Okay, and this variable I have already added in the global variables in the first call. So this way, it can be used here in the next API call, and it won't expire or won't be an issue every time we run this script. Like this is an example of using the global variable
okay.
for token. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Joshi sir, any questions?
नहीं, मेरे लिए तो पूरा लर्निंग है.
Okay. I'm stopping the recording then.